पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ बहुत सारे महाज खुले, कुछ हमने खुद खोले और काफी सारे हमारे खिलाफ खोले गए। आज के महाज जंग के नाम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं हूं वजाहत सईद खान। गुड मॉर्निंग इन Pakistan to everyone, and a very good evening here in the US and beyond to everyone in this hemisphere. My name is Wajahat Saeed Khan. तकरीबन 8 घंटे हो गए हैं। दुनिया की दूसरी बड़ी फौज ने, जो दुनिया के सबसे बड़े मुल्क को रिप्रेजेंट करती है, दुनिया के 5 बड़े मुल्क की 5वीं बड़ी फौज को आज विदाउट एनी वार्निंग अटैक किया। हिंदुस्तान ने पाकिस्तान पे धावा खोला। ये महाज जो है ये 9 लोकेशंस और 5 शहरों में फैला हुआ था। पाकिस्तानी रिपोर्ट्स के मुताबिक 35 पाकिस्तानी जख्मी हुए हैं, 8 पाकिस्तानी शहीद हुए हैं, 2 पाकिस्तानी मिसिंग हैं। इंडिया ने इस ऑपरेशन का नाम ऑपरेशन सिंदूर रखा है, जो इंडियन दुल्हनें लगाती हैं। पाकिस्तानी प्रोपेगेंडा इसको ऑपरेशन विधवा कह रहा है, जो एक दुल्हन के साथ हो जाता है जब उसका शौहर मारा जाता है। ऑपरेशन के 8 घंटे बाद प्रोपेगेंडा को साइड पे रखते हैं और पहले डिसाइड करते हैं कि व्हाट वी नो एंड व्हाट वी डोंट नो। इसके लिए पहले हम पाकिस्तानी और इंडियन मीडिया और इंटरनेशनल मीडिया का जायजा लेंगे with what we know, and then we will go to what we don't know. हमें क्या पता है और हमें क्या नहीं पता, ये हमें पता है। ये इस वक्त पाकिस्तान का मोतबर तरीन अखबारों की फहरिस्त में इसका जिक्र होता है। इसका नाम डॉन है। डॉन की ये सुर्खी है। डॉन क्लेम कर रहा है, एज यू कैन सी क्लियरली क्लेम कर रहा है कि 5 इंडियन जेट्स जो हैं वो पिछली रात गिराए गए हैं। 6 साइट्स पे स्ट्राइक्स हुई हैं। थोड़ी देर में पाकिस्तान में जो नेशनल सिक्योरिटी कैबिनेट में की जो कमेटी है नेशनल सिक्योरिटी की, उसकी थोड़ी देर में NSC जिसे कहते हैं, उसकी थोड़ी देर में मीटिंग होने वाली है। पाकिस्तान का जो 5 जेट्स का क्लेम है, अभी मैं उस पर आता हूं, बट ओवरऑल ये पाकिस्तान का काउंटर अटैक है। अटैक फिर से रिमाइंड करवाता चलूं, इंडिया ने किया है। की हाईलाइट्स अकॉर्डिंग टू डॉन ये हैं कि कोटली, बहावलपुर, मुरीद के बाग, मुजफ्फराबाद में अटैक हुआ, मतलब कि पाकिस्तानी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटेड कश्मीर में, और पाकिस्तानी पंजाब में 8 पाकिस्तानी शहीद, 35 जख्मी हुए हैं। मस्जिदें भी शहीद की गई हैं। 5 इंडियन जेट्स गिराए गए हैं। एक इंडियन ब्रिगेड हेडक्वार्टर्स, इन्फेंट्री ब्रिगेड का हेडक्वार्टर, और एक इंडियन चेक पोस्ट भी उड़ाई गई है। फ्लाइट्स ऑन द ग्राउंड जो हैं वो जो ऑल इनबाउंड हैं, आउटबाउंड हैं, कराची डाइवर्ट कर दी गई हैं। थोड़ी देर में नेशनल सिक्योरिटी कमेटी मिल रही है। पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त सुबह के 8 बजे हैं। ट्रंप साहब ने इसे शेम कहा है। ये ट्रिब्यून है, एक्सप्रेस ट्रिब्यून, ये भी कराची से शाया होता है, और ट्रिब्यून जो है वो भी ऐसी ही हेडलाइंस आपको बता रहा है। पाकिस्तान डाउन्स 5 फाइटर जेट्स इन रिटेलिएशन, और द न्यूज जो है वो भी ये कह रहा है कि पाकिस्तान शूट्स डाउन इंडियन जेट्स, डिस्ट्रॉयड ब्रिगेड हेडक्वार्टर्स इन रिटेलिएटरी स्ट्राइक्स। पाकिस्तान के 3 बड़े अखबार एक ही बात कर रहे हैं। फिर से जायजा लेते हैं। एक इंपॉर्टेंट लफ्ज है इस सब में, विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, क्योंकि अब थोड़ी क्लैरिटी आने लग गई है। रिटेलिएशन डॉन भी कह रहा है, आप देख सकते हैं। रिटेलिएशन ट्रिब्यून भी कह रहा है, आप देख सकते हैं। और रिटेलिएटरी स्ट्राइक द न्यूज भी, जंग ग्रुप भी कह रहा है। पाकिस्तान के 3 सबसे बड़े अखबार एक ही लफ्ज, एक ही हेडलाइन में इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। रिटेलिएशन मतलब जवाब। दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। पाकिस्तान ने जवाब दिया है। अब जवाब क्या दिया है, पहले तो उस पर हम आते हैं, पर पहले जायजा लें कि इस वक्त एयर स्पेस में क्या चल रहा है। एयर स्पेस का जायजा इसलिए लेने जरूरी है क्योंकि एयर स्पेस में ही जो जवाब है वो एयर स्पेस में ही चला है। ये पाकिस्तान, इंडिया, हिंदुस्तान का एयर स्पेस है। एज यू कैन सी बहुत सारी फ्लाइटें जो हैं वो डाइवर्ट हो चुकी हैं। पाकिस्तान के ऊपर से ज्यादातर लोग इस वक्त फ्लाई नहीं कर रहे। ये कल से मामला चल रहा था, इस पे रिपोर्टिंग हुई थी, इंटरनेशनल रिपोर्टिंग हुई थी, ब्रिटिश एयरवेज दीगर और एयरलाइंस रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर रही थी, बट इन्होंने अब रिस्पॉन्ड किया है। एक तो ये बड़ा जरूरी है इसे देखना और समझना कि ये एक्चुअली रियल टाइम में ये चल रहा है। दूसरी साइड पे व्हाट आर द इंडियंस क्लेमिंग, पहले इंडिया का जायजा लेते हैं, फिर पाकिस्तान पे आते हैं। इंडिया क्लेम कर रहा है कि पाकिस्तान पे वो भारी पड़ गया है। 2 मिनट के लिए इंडियन चैनल CNN IBN को देख। अच्छा, दिस इज दिस इज रियली इंपॉर्टेंट। जो पाकिस्तान क्लेम कर रहा है, एज यू सॉ, इंडियंस ने क्लियरली बोला है कि दिस इज फेक न्यूज। दिस इज क्रिटिकल। आई एम सॉरी इफ यू डिडंट हियर इट, बट दैट्स व्हाट द इंडियंस आर सेइंग कि दिस इज फेक न्यूज। पाकिस्तान जो भी क्लेम कर रहा है, इंडियंस उसको काउंटर क्लेम कर रहे हैं, कह रहे हैं कि ये फेक है। अब इस सब में आगे अगर इंडियन चैनल्स को मैं आपको दिखाऊं, जैसे ये चैनल है, ये भी ऐसी बातें कर रहा है। ये इंडिया टुडे का चैनल है, मल्टीपल पाक पोस्ट डिस्ट्रॉयड बाय इंडियन स्ट्राइक्स, अगेन क्लेमिंग विक्ट्री फॉर इंडिया। सेम विद स्पेशली दिस चैनल व्हिच इज particularly राइट विंग, ये भी यही क्लेम कर रहे हैं कि दे आर डूइंग रियली वेल। पाकिस्तान जो भी कर रहा है बकवास कर रहा है, पाकिस्तान ने कुछ रिस्पॉन्स नहीं किया, और अगर किया है तो शेलिंग की है, और आम लोगों को पाकिस्तान ने काउंटर किया है। ये पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ इंडिया का पर्सपेक्टिव है। उधर इंडिया जो पाकिस्तान का पर्सपेक्टिव है, उसमें एग्जैक्टली क्या चल रहा है, ये आपके लिए पहले मैं थोड़ा सा दिखाता हूं। पाकिस्तान का ARY न्यूज का बिल्कुल कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव है। ये जो इस वक्त आप देख रहे हैं, ये ARY ने दिखाया है वो एक ठिकाना जिसमें इंडियन, अकॉर्डिंग टू पाकिस्तानी सोर्सेज, इंडिया ने अपनी सफेद झंडी खड़ी कर दी है एक LOC की पोस्ट पे। तो दोनों जो साइड्स हैं उनके डायमेट्रिकली अपोज व्यूज आप कह सकते हैं आ रहे हैं। ये पाकिस्तान का सबसे देखा जाने वाला चैनल है, ये क्लेम कर रहा है जियो न्यूज के, और ये पहला चैनल है जो क्लेम कर रहा था कि 6 जहाज गिराए गए हैं। अब जब तकरीबन 5 घंटे पहले DGISPR ने जो ब्रीफिंग की थी, उसमें उन्होंने डेफिनेटली कहा कि बहावलपुर, मुजफ्फराबाद, कोटली मुरीद के, शकरगढ़, अहमदपुर, शर्किया में अटैक्स हुए हैं, मगर उन्होंने जहाजों का मेंशन नहीं किया था। जहाजों का मेंशन एक्चुअली अस्करी जराए और फिर ख्वाजा आसिफ, द मिनिस्टर ऑफ डिफेंस, जहाजों के नंबर्स वो देते आ रहे हैं। उन्होंने ये भी अपनी खबर पहले दी और फिर वो खबर रोल बैक की कि पाकिस्तान ने कुछ इंडियन फौजी प्रिजनर ले लिए हैं, उनको कैदी बना लिया है। ख्वाजा आसिफ ने ये गलत खबर दी, ये गलत खबर चली, और फिर वॉक बैक इस खबर को उन्होंने रिट्रैक्ट किया। ये होता है फॉग ऑफ वॉर में, ये होता है, रियल टाइम इंफॉर्मेशन आ रही होती है और जा रही होती है। मगर मेन चीज इस वक्त जो मामला है वो मोटा मोटा अगर हम देखें तो फ्लूइड है। इंडिया क्लेम कर रहा है कि उसके 3 लोग मारे गए हैं, पाकिस्तान ने शेलिंग की है। इंडियन जरीदों ने अभी तक कम से कम ये एब्जॉर्ब नहीं किया, ये एडमिट नहीं किया कि पाकिस्तान ने उनके जहाज गिराए हैं। ये पहले द हिंदू था, ये द हिंदू का फ्रंट पेज है, ये इंडियन एक्सप्रेस का फ्रंट पेज है। इंटरनेशनल अगर प्रेस को देखें तो वो भी कह रहा है कि अभी तक जो अटैक्स हैं पाकिस्तान, इंडिया ने किए हैं, और पाकिस्तान ने कुछ हद तक काउंटर अटैक्स किए हैं। ये न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स का फ्रंट पेज है और ये गार्डियन का फ्रंट पेज है। अभी तक बड़ी टेपेड, स्लो किस्म की रिपोर्टिंग चल रही है, या इंडिया की साइड ली जा रही है और बताया नहीं जा रहा कि पाकिस्तान ने हमला किया है या काउंटर हमला किया है, या सिर्फ दोनों का छोटा, आप कह सकते हैं मार्जिनल ओपिनियन लिया जा रहा है। मगर सोशल मीडिया पे जो है गेम जो है वो सोशल मीडिया पे इस वक्त फैला हुआ है। ये जो जंग लगी हुई है, ये इस वक्त अब नैरेटिव्स की जंग बन चुकी है। ये कुछ टैब्स हैं जो मैंने सेव किए हैं, जो अलग अलग जगहों से आना शुरू हुए हैं, जो डिस्क्राइब करते हैं, होपफुली क्लियरली डिस्क्राइब करते हैं एग्जैक्टली सोशल मीडिया पे क्या चल रहा है। इसको तमीज से देखना जरूरी है। इसमें कुछ फेक न्यूज भी है और कुछ फोरेंसिकली एनालाइज्ड रियल न्यूज भी है। बैटल स्पेस एक्स, जिसका जो एक प्रो पाक आर्मी वेबसाइट है, ये दिखाता है कि एक माइका मिसल का रफाल, जो रफाल पे चलता है मिसल लॉन्चर, वो मिला है भटिंडा में, इंडिया में। ये तकरीबन 20 से 30 किलोमीटर भटिंडा एयरफोर्स बेस से दूर है। दीगर और एनालिस्ट ने भी ये इमेजेस बिलीव की और कहा है कि यस, लग रहा है कि ये वाकई ही इंडियन मिसल लॉन्चर के फ्रैगमेंट्स हैं, जो जहाज, उनके जदीद तरीन जहाज रफाल पे लगता है। ये एक वीडियो है जो वायरल हुआ है। फिर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंटली, इंडियन पाकिस्तानी डेप्यूटी प्राइम मिनिस्टर स्लैश डिफेंस स्लैश फॉरेन मिनिस्टर इसहाक डार ने बात की है फॉरेन मिनिस्टर ऑफ टर्की से। टर्की पहला मुल्क है जिसने क्लियरली पाकिस्तान की साइड ली है। और भी लोग बोले हैं, साइड किसी ने अभी तक, बड़े लीडर ने पाकिस्तान की नहीं ली थी। व्हाट अ शेम बोला डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने, मगर टर्की क्लियरली पाकिस्तान के साथ सॉलिडारिटी दिखा रहा है और कह रहा है कि इंडिया ने अनप्रोवोक्ड अग्रेशन किया है। इसकी रामिफिकेशंस इंडिया के लिए काफी दूर जाएंगी, इंडिया और टर्की की रिलेशनशिप में। फिर एक और सिक्योरिटी एनालिस्ट नाथसैक जेफ ने ये दो तस्वीरें दिखाई हैं, दोनों इंडियन मीडिया की हैं, दोनों शो करती हैं कि 3 इंडियन जेट्स ने क्रैश किया है। अब इंडियंस क्लेम कर रहे हैं कि क्रैश हुआ है जेट। एक इमेज ये है, ये एरिया अब कॉर्डन ऑफ कर दिया गया है, और दूसरी इमेज I'm sorry if you can't hear it. Let me translate. Basically, Indian media lag raha hai, there's some sort of a mute problem in my player. But main thing is कि ये इंडियन मीडिया की रिपोर्ट्स हैं जो जिसमें बता रहे हैं, clearly बता रहे हैं कि RAF का जेट क्रैश कर गया है इस पर्टिकुलर लोकेशन में। जो इंडिया टुडे का रिपोर्टर है कह रहा है कि इंडियन कमांडोज ने इस एरिया को कॉर्डन ऑफ कर दिया है। ये वो लोकेशन है, पॉइंट करके बताता है बंदा कि ये वो लोकेशन है, ये वो दरख्त हैं जिधर गिरी है, ये जहाज गिरा है। तो इंडिया की तरफ से अब इस सुबह से, पिछले 2 घंटे से अब ये नैरेटिव शुरू हो गया है कि जहाज डेफिनेटली गिरा है, और एक नहीं, मल्टीपल लोकेशंस पे गिरा है। ये एक पर्सपेक्टिव शुरू हो गया। लेट्स कीप गोइंग फर्दर, आगे देखते हैं। दिस इज ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट। एक और इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के एक और जर्नलिस्ट कमाल सिंह बरार जो हैं, कमलदीप सिंह बरार, उन्होंने कहा है कि क्रैश एंड कैजुअलिटी इन बठिंडा पंजाब। ये इंडियन एक्सप्रेस अखबार के जर्नलिस्ट हैं, रिपोर्टिंग ऑन ह्यूमन राइट्स ऑन यूएपीए पंजाब पॉलिटिक्स इंडो पाक बॉर्डर विद इंडियन एक्सप्रेस। तो इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट अब एडमिट करने लग गए हैं कि जहाज गिरे हैं। पाकिस्तानी साइड से जो सबसे, आप कह सकते हैं, वाजे ट्वीट आई थी, वाजे अपडेट आई थी, वो ये थी। Again, there seems to be a problem with my player. My friends are messaging me as well. I might have to reload my player in just a bit. But the main thing is this. This was the most important statement which came out from ISPR earlier. आपको आवाज नहीं आ रही, मगर मैं आपको बता देता हूँ। ये स्टेटमेंट निकली है तकरीबन 4 घंटे पहले। The DGISPR obviously had a long night. He looks exhausted. But इसमें सिटी बाय सिटी, शहर बाय शहर, टारगेट बाय टारगेट और कैजुअलिटी बाय कैजुअलिटी, ये पहली लिस्टिंग थी। तकरीबन पाकिस्तान के उस वक्त फजर का वक्त था, 4-5 बजे थे सुबह के, जब इन्होंने लिस्ट ऑफ इंजर्ड लिस्ट ऑफ सिटीज, लिस्ट ऑफ टारगेट्स भी बताए, और इनफैक्ट उन मस्जिदों का नाम लिया जिन मस्जिदों को अटैक किया गया है। प्रोपेगेंडा दोनों साइड से दबा के चल रहा है। पाकिस्तानी साइड पे ये इस वक्त पीस वायरल हुआ है। ये वो मस्जिद है जिसको अटैक किया गया है, मगर सुबह ये मस्जिद फिर से खोल दी गई है और लोग इस मस्जिद पे आके allegedly नमाज पढ़ रहे हैं। दिस इज वन ऑफ द मॉस्क्स इन साउथ पंजाब दैट वाज टारगेटेड। फातिमा भुट्टो की एक ट्वीट वायरल हो गई है। मोसाद कमेंट्री, जो एक मशहूर प्रो इजराइल ट्विटर हैंडल है, उसने कहा कि हम इंडिया के साथ हैं। मोसाद इंडिया इजराइल की सिक्योरिटी सर्विस है, ये उससे वाबस्ता है अकाउंट। फातिमा भुट्टो, मुर्तजा भुट्टो की साहबजादी, from the other side of the Bhutto family, says literally not a single Pakistani on earth wants you standing with us. 4,500 से ज्यादा tweets इनकी retweets हुई हैं. I think for this one I will have to agree with Fatma. मेरी कॉलीग इंडिया की जबरदस्त रिपोर्टर हैं गीता मोहन, उन्होंने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के टारगेट्स की लिस्ट घंटा पहले ट्वीट की है। ये टारगेट्स पाकिस्तान में इन्होंने अपनी उल्टी सीधी हिंदी अंग्रेजी में हिंदुस्तानियों ने लिखे हैं कि 9 टारगेट्स थे। मरकज सुभान अल्लाह बहावलपुर, ये एक्चुअली इसका नाम मस्जिद सुभान अल्लाह बहावलपुर है। फिर एक मरकज तैयबा मुरीद के है, इसका नाम एक्चुअली मस्जिद तैयबा मुरीद के है। फिर एक और जगह है सरजाल तेहरा कलान में, मैमूना जोया सियालकोट में, मरकज अहले हदीस बरनाला में, मरकज अब्बास कोटली में, मस्कर राहील शहीद, मस्कर कुछ नहीं होता, मस्जिद होती है। Looks like there's a lot of Chinese whispers and typos in this sitrep. Shawai Nalla camp, Muzaffarabad, Sayyidina Bilal camp, Muzaffarabad. Sayyidina Bilal camp actually Bilal मस्जिद है, जो मैंने खुद कंफर्म की है मुजफ्फराबाद में। उधर के करीब एक कुछ हमारे जानने वाले हैं, उनके घर पे तो अटैक नहीं हुआ, उनके घर के पास अटैक हुआ है, मिसाइल्स से वो मस्जिद शहीद की गई है। इधर इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट कह रहे हैं कि ये जैश ए मोहम्मद का कैंप था। उधर आम मुजफ्फराबाद के लोग जिनसे हमने बात की है वो कह रहे हैं कि आम लोगों की मस्जिद थी। और इधर ही सेड शी सेड शुरू होता है पाकिस्तान बमुकाबला इंडिया का। जो मस्जिद सुभान अल्लाह बहावलपुर में है, जिसके अभी मैं इमेजेस आपको दिखा रहा था, वो अकॉर्डिंग टू इंडियन मीडिया जैश ए मोहम्मद की मस्जिद है। अभी अजीब सी बात है, मगर ये जो इमेजेस हैं जिसको इंडियंस टेररिस्ट कैंप्स कह रहे हैं, और ये इन्होंने ये इमेजेस निकाली हैं कि ये टारगेट्स हैं, ये एक्चुअली ज्यादातर मस्जिदों को या मदरसों को टारगेट किया गया है। बच्चे मारे गए हैं, औरतें मारी गई हैं। अकॉर्डिंग टू द आर्मी, आम जो उधर गरीब लोग हैं, क्वार्टर्स में रहते हैं, वो भी मारे गए हैं। और ये इधर वॉर और नैरेटिव्स अब शुरू होती है, किसे बिलीव किया जाए। अब जितना जो ट्रांसपेरेंसी दिखाएगा उतना उसे बिलीव किया जाएगा। हमने सुना है कि फौज ऑलरेडी तैयार कर रही है, पाकिस्तान की फौज जर्नलिस्ट को तैयार कर रही है कि उधर जाके देखें कि कौन से लोग मारे गए हैं, कितने लोग मारे गए हैं, और कौन से ये इलाके हैं जिधर अटैक्स हुए हैं। पंजाब में, पाकिस्तानी पंजाब में जो एग्जामिनेशंस हैं वो पोस्टपोन हो गए हैं। चीफ मिनिस्टर मरीम नवाज शरीफ ने इनको आगे कर दिया है। ये अब थर्ड पार्टी इन्वॉल्वमेंट शुरू होती है। ये चाइनीज प्रोपेगेंडा है जो कुछ ही घंटों पहले जब ये जंग शुरू होने वाली थी ये शुरू हुआ। दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। चाइना ने बड़े अरसे से ये इमेजेस नहीं दिखाई, मगर चाइना ने अपने जहाज काराकोरम के ऊपर, जो पाकिस्तानी कश्मीर और इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटेड कश्मीर के ऊपर जो जगह लगती है, जिसमें चाइना का भी हिस्सा है, चाइना ने अपना हिस्सा भी डाल दिया है और अपना हिस्सा भी क्लेम कर लिया है। चाइना ने दिखाया है कि हम एयर एक्सरसाइजेस कर रहे हैं। चाइना ने यह भी कहा है कि 1967 से लेकर अब तक हमने और पाकिस्तानियों दोनों ने काराकोरम हाईवे के लिए सैकड़ों जानें दी हैं, और बड़ा सख्त किस्म की जुबान इंडिया के खिलाफ इस चाइनीज प्रोपेगेंडा ट्विटर हैंडल ने इस्तेमाल की है। बोलता है, this is why our anti-India campaign will shine in the borderless air domain. We can provide assistance from beyond the horizon, from kinetic assistance like bombs and missiles to intelligence and signals, support from our network of satellites and AWACS. There lies the ultimate weakness of India and South Asia. They don't have any friends in the region due to Modi's imperialistic policies. Everyone hates them. बहुत सख्त जुबान इस चाइनीज प्रोपेगेंडा चैनल ने इस्तेमाल की है. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज पिछले 24-48 घंटे में कुछ रिपोर्टिंग चल रही थी कि चाइना पाकिस्तान को रियल टाइम सैटेलाइट इंटेलिजेंस प्रोवाइड कर रहा है. एंड इसकी वजह से पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स का एज है, और वो एज लगता है कि आज प्रूव किया है पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ने. एक नहीं, दो नहीं, इस वक्त 6 जहाज पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स क्लेम कर रही है. 6 जहाज गिराए गए हैं, और इंडियन मीडिया एडमिट कर रहा है कि 3 की रैकेज उन्होंने देखी है खुद. अब इंडियन मीडिया इसे क्रैश कह रहा है, कुछ एंटी पाकिस्तानी मिलिट्री मीडिया इसे क्रैश कह रहा है. बट इस सब में जो पाकिस्तानी हैं वो उनको फख्र तो होना चाहिए, पर मेन चीज है इसमें एक इंडियन चाइनीज हाथ भी है. चाइनीज प्रोपेगेंडा चैनल्स ये काम भी कर रहे हैं. इन्होंने भी missile launchers and unfired missiles from the French-made Indian Rafale jets have been identified. चाइना के बड़े हाई स्टेक्स थे इस जंग में, क्योंकि चाइनीज टेक्नोलॉजी, चाइनीज मिसाइल्स, चाइनीज प्लेटफॉर्म्स, चाइनीज जहाज यूज हुए हैं. ये याद रहे कि पाकिस्तान के पास अब जो लेटेस्ट जो जहाज हैं वो अब चाइनीज आर्सनल के जहाज हैं. ये वीडियो पहले देखते हैं और फिर आगे वाले इमेजेस देखते हैं. अब आपको अगर ये नहीं नजर आ रहा तो कोई बात नहीं, मैं आपको फिर से दिखा देता हूं. ये क्लोजअप्स हैं, ये शॉट्स हैं उन मिसाइल लॉन्चर्स के, उन कंपोनेंट्स के जो इंडियन पंजाब से हैं, और फिर इन्होंने ये इसका एनालिसिस किया है. ये ओरिजिनल रफाल का है, और फिर इन्होंने इसका एनालिसिस किया है. इधर एक छोटी सी ब्रेक लेते हैं, और अब गियर्स स्विच करते हैं, और मेरे दोस्त मशहूर ज़माना एनालिस्ट माइक कुगलमैन जो वॉशिंगटन में होते हैं, उनसे बात करते हैं. जुबान स्विच होगी, तज्जिया स्विच नहीं होगा. स्टे विद मी. शेयर, लाइक, सब्सक्राइब, कमेंट, एंड लेट्स गो टू माइक कुगलमैन in Washington, D.C. How you doing, Mike?
Very well, thanks. It's been quite a few 6 or 7 hours, hasn't it?
It's been an intense day. I know you've been back to back. Were you just on Bloomberg? What did you tell them?
Yes. What did I tell them? All of the interviews are running into the other. There have been so many of them I've done the last few hours, but
speaking of which, slow down a little. We're joined by another friend, a common friend. All of us met just a couple of weeks ago when we did that conference at Yale. Here we go. Hussain Nadeem joins us live as well, also from your neck of the woods in Washington. Let's switch gears. Let me make some introductions and take it from there. I am joined by Mike Kugelman, formerly director of the South Asia Institute at the Wilson Center, and by Hussain Nadeem, adjunct at George Washington University. Both are friends of mine. Both are leading analysts and the best watchers money can never buy, hopefully, in the Washington circuit. Both inside the Beltway. Both just gave very high society, fancy interviews to ABC and Australian TV and Bloomberg, and both now have had the kindness to join me for this live broadcast. I was just giving my friends who are watching, and there's over about 9,000 people watching us right now. So we'll have to keep this fun and intense. You may have read my thumbnail. We know what's happened. I've given everybody a heads up on what's happened. We know what's been happening in real time. The fog of war has set in as well. But I'll start with you, Mike. Do you think that this will escalate further? Will India and Pakistan go to full-out war? Where do we stand?
No, I don't think that they'll go to war. I think that's unlikely. I think that there's a number of reasons to believe that to be the case, even though I'm very concerned about how things have played out to this point. I mean, the nuclear factor will always be a deterrent, no matter what. That's one factor. I think that India, is also has limited aims in terms of military objectives. It does appear that it wants to send a very tough message to Pakistan that it really is intent on curbing these terrorist havens, or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I think India recognizes that Pakistan has very strong conventional military capabilities, and they are evenly matched in some aspects, particularly along the LOC. I will say that I'm struck by the scale and intensity of this Indian strike that we had in recent hours. I mean, I think it's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, probably one of the most high intensity Indian strikes in Pakistan for several decades. So that's
Yeah,
pretty
not
significant.
not just that. They're calling it the most intense non-war strike. I don't even know what that means, but that's what the Deutsche Welle correspondent actually read from a handout. There's a war and there's a non-war, and Pakistan and India are, at least according to German press, in a non-war, and this is the largest non-war strike. I know Hussein's smiling. Hussein, take it away. Are we going to make this non-war a war? What have you been telling your friends on ABC and in Australia? Fill us in.
I like this whole new concept of non-war war. I think the war brings about new definitions, new concepts, and whole new way of looking at the situation. But I do also agree with Michael over here on how the situation could, evolve. The one thing that is very clear at the moment is that India has done what was, I mean, most of the people were predicting that it had to be bigger than the Balakot strike. Uh, they have made very clear over the decade what their issues and main irritants are. They have pinpointed specific areas within Pakistan where they have been talking about, and urging Pakistan to clear those areas. So the strike, I think, was predictable. It's just that the fact that they did it in a very specific way is probably would be appearing as a surprise. Now, the interests of the India and Pakistan over here are definitely Pakistan would like to win at least on the narrative warfare. That's Pakistan's main doctrine. They want to make sure that whatever happens on the ground, they're able to win on the social media and on the narrative front, because that's something that's very important for India as well. They want to take something back home, so these strikes give them some level of images, the visuals that they can take back home. At the end of the day, it's really about appeasing the audiences back home more than anything else, because they both know that specifically in the case of Pakistan, it doesn't have the, I would say, the capability. They may have the capability, the nuclears and the conventional warfare and everything, but having a capability is one thing. The ability to deploy and use it is a completely different thing at all. Pakistan's economic base, IMF loans, oil reserves from Riyadh, the investments with China, does not allow Pakistan to operate with a free hand as a sovereign country on its own and do whatever the hell they want. That gives India some level of comfort that the retaliation will be controlled and limited in that way. So we can see very quickly China, Riyadh, and China and the US stepping in, which they already have, to make sure that the war now swiftly moves from the battlefield into the narrative warfare, where they both can claim victory through their home audiences, and you go back home.
Right. Well, Mike, if do you think this is just going to stop at a war of narratives? Right now, I have breaking news coming in with Reuters now claiming. First, it was just the Pakistanis claiming, but now Reuters is confirming that at least three, and here's the story from Reuters, at least three Indian jets have been confirmed to crash. Here's the piece right here from Reuters. There it is. Three fighter jets crashed in India's Jammu and Kashmir. Local governments confirm. What do you make of this? This is clearly there's going to be some sort of hell to pay in the Dassault factories, if not with the shareholders, then definitely with the Indian clients who've negotiated for very long years for this contract. What do you think of the narrative building which the Pakistanis will do here? But fine, you knocked out 9 mosques and 8 people and 30 with 8 people killed and 35 people injured. Here's 3 down jets worth millions. Is it cost effective? 9 mosques for millions of dollars of worth of jets. Does this even make economic sense for India?
Well, I mean, if you're looking for an opportunity to claim a victory of sorts that enables one to start looking at off-ramp possibilities, this could be it. In fact, I think I said this in my last interview. Now we still don't know. I mean, did they crash because they were shot down, or did they just crash? I don't think we know yet. But either way, if it's true that Pakistan was involved in the downing of 3 Indian jets, then yeah, that could be an opportunity for Pakistan to claim victory and said, well, look, we got this, and now let's think about moving toward a de-escalation. It's trickier this time because we all remember in 2019 there was that very clear opportunity to de-escalate when the Pakistani side basically said, well, we got this Indian pilot and we're going to offer to set him free. And that was the off ramp there. Here it's trickier. But I do think that this might be that opportunity. And this gets back to your first question, Waj, about whether I think this could become an all-out war. Either side wants a war. Despite all the tough talk and the saber rattling and the missile tests and the shutting down the border and all this stuff and these military drills that India is planning to do this week, neither side wants nor can afford an all-out war. So yeah, this might be the opportunity for Pakistan to say, okay, let's ramp it down. And who knows? I mean, once the mediation efforts start, and Hussein, or maybe it was Hussein or you, one of you said that the key players, the Americans, the Chinese, the Saudis, the Qataris, others, they could maybe use that as an argument to bring to the Pakistani side. We'll see what India wants to do. My sense is that India feels it achieved what it wanted to achieve. And I think that in this case, we don't know exactly what happened to this point, but unlike with Balakot, where it seems quite clear that they missed the targets and they hit a bunch of trees instead of actual terrorist targets, they hit something. Now, unfortunately, it does seem like they hit civilians. But we know that at least some of the areas where the Indians targeted, particularly in Punjab, these are areas where terrorists are known to hang out, the LET and JEM and so on. So I think that even as we are, still reeling from what's happened over the last 7 hours, each side might have an opportunity to claim a victory and look to move on. But the narrative war, as Hussein was describing it, that'll be tougher to ramp down. But certainly that rhetoric is much less escalatory than kinetic action, not to state the obvious.
Yeah. So if you're saying this is a good time for both sides to stop, that's what it would sort of seem like. In the intense first phase, we saw the Indians roll out what was called Operation Sindoor. Just to recap, 9 sites, 5 different cities. The Indians claimed in a very interestingly phrased handout that this was a non-escalatory step. It was very focused and targeted. It was only terrorists, they claimed. It was not military. And basically, everybody go to bed. We'll brief you in the morning. That's literally what it said at the end of it, that there'll be a briefing on Operation Sindoor soon. I'm not even going to get into the religious rhetoric behind the nomenclature that is Sindoor, which is literally what a new bride wears the day she's married. So let's not even go into the Hinduology of this operation. But let's stop it right there. That was what came out at 1:44 a.m. India time. Then we started seeing the Pakistanis push, and push they did. The Pakistani media machine was pretty effective. I was seeing both sides operate. The Indians didn't talk to a single Pakistani analyst. The Pakistanis didn't talk to a single Indian analyst. Both sides barely talked to any international analysts like yourself, Mike. They were very, very focused on a very hyper-local perspective. The Indians stood redeemed and went on to basically emphasize that was just terrorist targets they hit. The Pakistanis started showing very interesting images. Women hurt, children hurt, and then, of course, started rolling the images of downed planes. Now, forensic analysts went to work very quickly. Some of those images were debunked. Some were regarded as old. Some of it was fake. And now we're seeing that some of it is real. Now, the only country which Pakistan has is on the international off-ramp conversation, the only country which has effectively spoken to Pakistan and said, good job, we're with you in solidarity, is Turkey. Not a lot of people have said anything positive to Pakistan. That's just that one sliver from Turkey. The U.S. President has said, "What a shame," but they've been fighting for hundreds of years. Moving on. I think that was sort of like an off ramp itself. Hussein, wasn't that a hint from Trump that saying, "Hey, yeah, I hope we wrap it up soon." Bec- A, I want you to comment on that. B, Hussein, I also read your quote tweet on Ro Khanna and his perspective. Ro is not a fan of the Pakistani military. He's definitely not a fan of General Asim Munir. And you agreed with him that this will give the Pakistani military and the Pakistani general legitimacy. I want you to weigh in on that for a minute for me, please, if you can.
Okay, so I'll start with the second one. I think one thing that people are not talking about enough, which is the elephant in the room, and I talked on ABC about it, is the asymmetrical balance between the two countries that have developed, in not just in terms of the power itself, but in terms of the states that they're becoming. You have Pakistan, which is under a military control right now. It's a military rule in the country. There's a dwindling democracy. The economic base is completely messed up. And you have almost a political and a social collapse at the moment. India, on the other hand, is in a very different trajectory at the moment. They're looking to become a third largest economy, the whole political infrastructure, economic infrastructure, and they're priming themselves to become, play that US-China competition. In that situation, really, you have a sort of asymmetry in terms of wants and needs, which can come into a collision with each other. So for India, Pakistan has been a sort of irritant for a while, and Pakistan still has the potential to, poke every now and then in the Indian eye and be able to, show the gaping holes that the Indian, the Bollywood, and the whole economic might demonstrate. So I think in that sense, the at the heart of this entire problem is really this lack of democracy in Pakistan, because what you have is an inability of two countries to talk with each other, to negotiate with each other, to be able to resolve the problems with each other. And that stems really because you have individuals, and I don't not to want to play the Indian side on that, but you have in India a largest democracy slipping towards authoritarianism, and you have Pakistan where you have a military control, which is a complete militarized country now. It is becoming more and more impossible for both countries to not be able to, go on to a clash with each other, which is one of the reasons why I think Ro Khanna was right on spot. He addressed the elephant in the room that unless and until there is no democracy in Pakistan, I'm not going to talk about India, they have their own problems. That's for their analysts to talk about. But for our side, it's very critical that Pakistan has a legitimate government, a legitimate democracy that can actually have conversation towards peace or sustainability with each other. In the absence of that, you have a centralized power structure within the army chief who's going to cling on to his power till the very end. And the wars are just continuation of politics in that case.
So hold on. I want to take this. We don't have an Indian analyst, but I'll ask Mike to play devil's advocate here with me. Mike, our friend over here is not a fan of the Pakistani military's Praetorian policies for all very good reasons, and is saying that they're the elephant in the room. And till they are, till they give up their ironclad control of the country's political economy, the country won't be a normal country and thus will not be able to live normally in a normal neighborhood. But the neighborhood isn't normal, is it? The India may be a democracy, but it's not a very liberal democracy. It is what now people like Ashu Varshney are calling an electoral democracy, where there are elections, but not necessarily the equity and the tolerance which should come with those elections. Uh, both sides have ramped up rhetoric. Both sides have poisoned the invective. Do you think Hussein's right? Is this just really up to Asim Munir and his iron grip, or frankly, does some of the fault lie on the Indian side as well?
Well, yeah, there's so many ways of answering that question. One point that I would make listening to Hussein's comment is thinking that the most serious or the last really serious effort that there was towards India-Pakistan peace was when a military dictator was in power in Pakistan. That's one thing that comes to mind. One could argue that conditions in Pakistan might be less democratic now than they were when Musharraf was in power for on several fronts. But he was a military dictator. Pakistan was under formal military rule, and yet that didn't stop Pakistan from getting quite close to a peace process until the Mumbai attacks, among other things, sent that up in smoke. I mean, it's democracies go to war against each other sometimes. I think that inherently, so much would be better for Pakistan if it were a true democracy. But yeah, I mean, I think that we're living in a global moment where democracy is on the retreat, and it has been for quite some time. I mean, looking at the current India-Pakistan dynamic right now, I think that there are a number of factors that got the two countries to where they are right now, and it really doesn't have much to do with concern with the status of democracy in Pakistan right now, right? I mean, you have to look at what happened on April 22nd. Don't want to get into a conversation about what motivated the attack, who was behind it, and so on.
Yep.
But this is something that's played out many times.
Yep.
In Pakistan and India, when you've had military rule, when you've had some semblance of democracy and so on. So I wouldn't overstate that democracy bit here. Again, though, I mean, things would be better for Pakistan on the whole if things were very different and you had entrenched democracy. And some of us were very optimistic if you go back to, say 2010, when you had a constitutional amendment that was decentralizing power, when military rule had ended several years earlier. I remember there being a lot of optimism back then, but that didn't lead to a better relationship with India, right?
Right.
So, I mean, there was a period when trade started to pick up, I think, around then, and you had a lot of progress on the commercial front. But again, I just think that the India-Pakistan relationship is driven by by considerations that have more to do with other things than the state of democracy in Pakistan or in India, for that matter.
Okay, we're going to freshen things up a bit. I know it's been a long day. It's a late night here. It's been a very long night for people back in South Asia. We're talking to Mike Kugelman, the South Asia Wala, my go-to guy when it comes to all things South Asia, and Hussain Nadeem, a friend, as well as Professor George Washington. Both are my friends are insiders inside the Beltway. They'll take your questions. If they're coming in, please send them, direct them, so I can send them their way. Just to shake things up a little, these images are creating quite a stir. They are coming in from different parts of social media. This one, Mike, is yours to Hussain. This one is yours to have fun with. This is near Srinagar. This is coming in from this place called International Defense Analysis. I have no idea who these guys are. Evidently, they have 59,000 followers, and they claim to be an independent platform that shares validated defense news. But the pictures have been circulating for quite a bit, look pretty legit. And these are the pics. And the pics are they have French markings and are either a Mirage 2000 or a Rafale. Clearly, the building looks to be quite South Asian in nature. This corresponds with the official perspective of the Pakistani state as reflected in this headline. Pakistan downs 5 Indian jets as retaliation for late night strikes. Interestingly, this is the Dawn. Interestingly, the Dawn's rival, the News, had the same headline, retaliatory strikes, and their rival, the Express Tribune, had the same headline, retaliation for India's missile strikes. As you can see, clearly the supreme control of the Pakistani state over national media is in reflection, where even the headline of the three rival newspapers is exactly the same. But Nadeem, is this going to change things up for India and Pakistan in terms of the narrative warfare, tech warfare? Is this? I want you to embellish your point about this being a war of narratives and not just being downed anymore.
Uh, I want to ask a little bit more about that. What exactly you want me to comment on terms of the narrative warfare?
Yeah,
But
yeah, because at this point, it seems that in the narrative war, again, if you go to the Indian side is claiming that Pakistan's done for, man. It's this is India today, India's Pak punishment. Completely different pictures. They're showing a complex. This, by the way, these images are not
sure,
showing in Pakistan. These images are
yeah,
showing, and let me show you what these images are right here. That's what the Indians are showing, right? A
yeah,
completely devastated mosque. They're calling it the Bilal Mosque terror camp. Now, this is Muzaffarabad, Kashmir,
yeah.
and they're calling it a terror camp. It's obviously not a terror camp, obviously a mosque. I've spoken to people in the vicinity of this mosque. It's a real mosque where real people go to pray, but according to Indian media or parts of Indian media, it is destroyed. Now, these images will go far in the Pakistani and Indian mindset when a mosque will be synonymous with a terror camp on for either side. I want you to tell me a little more about what you think. How do you think this will play out in the long run?
So see, who's the audience of the narrative warfare? Let's break it down. So for the Pakistani side or for the Indian side, they're not trying to convince each other's base that we've won. Their target audience in the narrative warfare is their own audience. That's primarily it. And then if they can take some level of traction within the international media, that's a bonus on top or a cherry on top. So what is happening at the moment with the downing of the jets, Pakistan has an upper advantage on the narrative warfare because almost every spectator index, Bloomberg's, and all of these, even big social media accounts like Mario and others are basically talking about Pakistan downing a jet. They're basically saying that it's not verified, but the very fact that there is a possibility that Pakistan is down two, three, four, five jets itself is a big victory, right? So for Pakistan, it really serves domestically on the narrative front that we have the capability, credibility to respond to an attack, and internationally as well, they've been able to establish a credibility with the watchers in the defense industry, in the aviation industry, and for people like Trump as well that respect power. So when they look at Pakistan's ability to respond, naturally Pakistan's status as a power or an air power becomes more and more significant. So these are optics. And the narratives and the war is really going to be about optics from now onwards. And I think Pakistan has done a fairly well job in terms of that. Now, India is playing to its core audience. It has a big machinery, a big narrative to sell. So nobody's denying India's, status as a power, India's status as an economy and all of that. So it has an established reputation and that will continue forward. It's not going to be dented internationally in a significant way because it's still going to remain relevant. I think the big win, the big gain is going to be for Pakistan. That is literally teetering on economic collapse, political collapse. I also want to comment on one thing that Mike said, and I disagree with that on that. Democracy is actually the only issue right now. The reason why there is a recurring pattern. What you're basically suggesting is, about General Musharraf having that sort of like close to getting Kashmir sorted out. But it is also the same General Musharraf that went on with Kargil. And during the end years of his time, when he was now considering himself as a democratic political leader, that's when the Kashmir issue started coming in. Pakistan has had decades of history of military rule. I don't think there has been a period of democracy, a true democracy in the country, and maybe that is the elephant in the room that we're trying to talk about. That because there has been a complete militarization of the foreign policy, the security policy, we have not been able to reach a breakthrough with India at all. And there are problems on the Indian side as well. But for the Pakistan, the anatomy of the state itself, it's a war. It's basically waging a war on its own. So it becomes, that thing. So on the narrative part, Pakistan is getting troubled with both things because at the moment, anyone that I'm speaking to here in Washington and even in Australia, I think the conversation keeps going back to this one point that you have a sort of military dictatorship in Pakistan. Pakistan has had a history of these attacks. So Pakistan's narrative becomes kind of get confused with the whole situation about Pakistan's history, Pakistan's lack of democracy. But in terms of the battlefield right now, at the moment, Pakistan does have a narrative advantage, but can it translate that into a big win diplomatically, politically, economically? No, I don't think that the narrative alone can, transform a state into
Yeah, that's a day two conversation. I want to have a day zero and day one conversation though. Right now, I know we can't go back into the theoretical flaws of either one of your arguments. It'll be too long and esoteric a show. But let's just go back and recap what we know. It's the 6th of May. On the 22nd of April, exactly 14 days ago, at around 3 p.m. local time, 25 Indians and one Nepali were gunned down. The initial reports which came in indicated that all of them were Hindus. Eventually, we found out that was not as clear as that. It was a little more complicated. Local Muslims who were vendors there, who were tour guides there, were also killed. But I do remember breaking the news myself and watching my colleagues, some of whom I've worked with, partied with, hung with, even dated, I must admit, for the first time. Some of my colleagues went crazy that within minutes of the attack, they went live on their channels in India and, well, did what they had to do, which was follow a very certain narrative, which has become quite knee-jerk, that all roads lead to Pakistan. Now, I am not going to stop them from that. That's their professional obligation. They can do what they need to do. But to my surprise, Pakistan, 72 hours later, mustered an interesting response and said, hey, we're open to help out in an independent investigation. But the Indians had already moved. They'd moved on the Indus Waters Treaty. They'd moved on trade. They'd moved on shutting down the border. And then yesterday and the day before, we really saw a lot of traction. We saw, for the first time since 1960, flushing done in the major river systems, with the Chenab drying up, images of the Chenab for the first time in a long time drying up. We saw the abeyance in action. We saw one of the biggest air exercises announced on the Rajasthan border, which basically hits the Bahawalpur axis, which for the last 2 decades has been a center point and a center of gravity for all sorts of military analysts about being the thrust of India's cold start doctrine. We saw naval exercises from the Indian side with announcements that most of the operational fleet is out at sea. The Pakistanis didn't hold back, of course. They had the Abdali test. They had the Fatah test. They had an emergency session yesterday at the UN. But they kept on saying one thing, and that is critical in this situation. They said, we will not attack first, but if we are attacked upon, we will respond. That's exactly what's happened. Now, I'm just wondering, are we like, are these two nations, democratic or not, Hindu nationalist or right-wing Muslim or not, Praetorian or not? Those are different debates. Are these two countries getting used to war, especially since the Modi administration has taken charge? Remember 2016? Escalation, special forces, it was a new yardstick. 2019, another escalation, Pulwama. Sure, they hit crows and trees, according to the Pakistani press, but they eventually ended up with that famous cup of tea being drunk by their wing commander, Abhinandan. And now this. It seems that every time there is some sort of problem, the escalation ladder is already, we keep on talking about the escalation ladder. Well, here it is. It's not happening in days, but it's happening over years. So I'm just wondering, guys, that the next time, God forbid, 20 or 30 or 40 people are gunned down somewhere in a Srinagar bazaar, sure, my friends in the Indian media will do what they do. Not much will change there because that's how their media works. What will Mr. Modi do? Even if Mike, your off ramp is taken today in the next few hours, and it seems it might as well be. We haven't seen a lot of action from the Pakistanis. If that off ramp is taken, what will happen next time, especially in this world where there are no real brokers? The most powerful man in the world is not interested in brokering peace and says, I hope they figure it out. What a shame. They've been fighting for centuries. I'm talking about President Trump, of course. Do you think both sides are setting, especially the Indian side, are setting a yardstick which is a little too high every time for war?
Yeah, it's an interesting consideration. My sense, based on conversations with contacts in India and visits in India in recent years, is that they basically don't really want to be bothered with Pakistan. That they've been so focused on the China challenge, which has emerged as India's biggest strategic challenge for sure. And then basically the view is that, oh well, we can manage Pakistan. I mean, they acknowledge that they worry about the continued risk of cross-border terrorism, but they think that they have it managed, and that when you see all of these talk shows in India railing against Pakistan, and when you have these comments made by Indian officials against Pakistan, that's more performative than anything else. That it doesn't actually reflect genuine concern and worry about Pakistan, but it's more for a domestic audience. So in that sense, that suggests that it's a bit surprising that we got to the point that we are now. But if you look at how things have played out in the Modi era, as you'll recall, early on in his first term, he went to Lahore, the famous visit to Lahore on Christmas to meet with Nawaz Sharif, and he appeared to be wanting to pull off a Nixon goes to China at that point. Obviously, it backfired because of what happened within a few days after his trip, right? And the rest was history. And one could argue that he tried Nixon goes to China. He wasn't going to try it again. And I think that he learned that being tough on Pakistan, really tough on Pakistan, plays well politically in India, and certainly with him and with Modi and his party. So I don't think that from the looking at this from the India side, I don't think that India is itching for conflict with Pakistan or anything like that. Now, but I would say that looking at the situation now, the Indian perspective would be, well, look, we just saw this horrific attack that played out, one of the most deadly attack on civilians since the Mumbai attacks. And that after so many efforts to try to degrade the terrorism threat in Pakistan, it didn't work, it didn't prevent this, and now we really need to get the job done. And I think that explains why we saw what we did in recent hours with this high intensity, high scale operation in Pakistan. It also explains all the other steps that you laid out, the non-military punitive steps that we've been seeing from India, some of them unprecedented, like the Indus Waters Treaty suspension. So I think from the Indian perspective, they want to get things right on the terrorism issue. They're not trying to provoke a wider war with Pakistan or anything like that. On the Pakistani side, again, I don't think that there's been so much discussion about the speech that General Munir gave, a few days before the April 29 attack. I don't draw a link between that speech and the attack by any means. He didn't really say anything that hasn't been said previously by a Pakistani military or a civilian leader. You look at the border truce that was concluded in 2021, which had kept relations fairly not stable, but sort of like a cold peace status for the last 4 years. I think that's significant. You both remember when that ballistic missile, that supersonic missile flew into Pakistan from India a few years ago.
Yep.
India said it was a training error. Pakistan reacted angrily, but nothing happened. And that's quite remarkable, I think. So that just suggests to me that Pakistan itself has no interest in wanting to stoke something with India. It's got enough going on at home with its economy and the political turmoil and the terrorism upsurges and all that. It wouldn't want to stoke anything in India now.
So quick follow up, and then I'll pivot with the same question to Hussain. So firstly, about the BrahMos test gone wrong, the Indians did a back channel apology for that, and the Pakistanis were duly satisfied, but reasonably angry. But it went away. That was one. That's one important bit, which is critical to know. Secondly, even more critical to know, to your point about China is India's real problem. Well, guess what? The J-10, the PL-15, the JF-17 Thunder, the latest Chinese tech is the one which is responsible for many of those downed jets tonight. Chinese supplied AWACS systems have helped the Pakistanis stay constantly up in the air. So in a way, not for just people who are bored of the India-Pakistan rivalry, the whole India-Pakistan fatigue, which we see in the Pentagon and in Western quarters, and even in New Delhi's South Block. All of that, Mike, shouldn't that be concerning to India watchers? Because if India watchers are more interested in the China complex, well, guess what? China's best weaponry, if not its best, but most of its top shelf weaponry now is on display being tested in real time by Pakistani pilots, and to what we know, to great effect. So, shouldn't this be worrisome? And speaking of worrisome, I'm joined by yet another friend. Um, this is Derek Grossman of the RAND Corporation, all the way from California. Derek is 3 hours behind us, but always ahead of us when it comes to watching India. Hopefully, he will connect with us soon. When he does, we'll have him back on the screen. But coming back in, Mike, I want you to think about that. Hussein, do you want to take the challenge I just threw to Mike's point about Chinese weaponry at display here?
I think the naturally it becomes very important, right? Because these are real battleground situations. These are not simulations. These are not test exercises. These are real battle, situations where you have countries trying out weapons of different powers, and naturally there's no better way to test these out in real time situations than what we have right now. So that definitely gives a huge edge. I also want to comment on one other part, which is related to how India is gaming it out. Let's say if you're Prime Minister Modi right now, or India, where you have a particular vision of going into a big league or playing the big league in China at the moment. In your case now, how would you respond to attacks like coming from Pakistan or this recurring problem that is there? So one thing is that you keep your focus on to your economic development, your power, and then you're in that stage where this problem fizzles out. But if you're Modi, if you're Prime Minister Modi, you're in your last innings. You've done all you've could. You've been you settled. You're not probably going to go for another election cycle. So you would be very much interested in, sorting it out, sorting the issue out once and for all. That would be your temptation. Partly also because you don't want this issue to come back haunting to you every 4 or 5 years, poking hole in the Indian, vulnerabilities. So I think there is a huge temptation, and there was a huge temptation from the Indian side to attack in a spectacular shock and awe situation, bigger than Balakot, but something that could avoid the whole full-out war. So I think they've already done that. Now, you made the point about, what happens the next time something like this happens, because the next time is always on the corner. My bigger worry is that what if the next time is not Prime Minister Modi, it is Yogi Adityanath? What do you do then? So when that is the situation, then you have, a different kind of like a ball game altogether. And what if, in Pakistan, there is not, this guy, there is another guy who's like more, now, more confident in their Pakistan's military capabilities or the Air Force capabilities. So the situation and the math around it completely changes the moment you have, these issues that go unresolved, third party negotiates, and both sides go back home. They come back again few years, and then there's a slightly higher intensity battle, and then they'll go back till the point where the situation becomes completely imploded. So I think I'm a little bit more concerned on those part as well.
Right. Well, while you were making your brilliant point, I was giving everybody a tour of the latest. And it just seems that for the first time in a long time, Mike, the India Pakistan fatigue factor is kind of over. It took a while for the Western press to actually acknowledge what was going on. I was noticing the news, but then when it started breaking, it's been consistent now. The Financial Times hasn't changed its headline for almost 5 hours now, nor has the New York Times, for that matter. I haven't checked the journal, but Al Jazeera has been pretty stagnant and clear about making this a priority headline as well. Do you think, forget international media, why, Mike, hasn't any international player, and this is a really critical question because now we're talking about off ramps, why hasn't any international player stepped up? There was a great editorial in, was it The Economist, just a couple of days ago, which said that and that was just written a day after Rubio made the call to his counterparts in India and Pakistan. But basically it said, yeah, Rubio has made the calls, but skeptics are of the opinion, diplomats are of the opinion that international diplomats America hasn't hit the phones as hard as it usually has in the past. Why is America so distant this time? Is it because of its proximity to Mr. Modi? Is it because of Trump's Make America Great Again a doctrine of isolation? Which one is it? What is it? Or is it just Pakistan fatigue?
Well, I don't know if I'd say the U.S. has been distant. I mean, Rubio had spoken to Jaishankar and Dar, some days ago, before the strike happened today, and the State Department has been messaging its concerns about the situation, its desire for de-escalation. And JD Vance some days ago said that we don't want an Indian response to risk a regional war. So I wouldn't say that the Trump administration has been distant. But then again, if you look at the history of how the U.S. tends to intervene in these crises, I mean, typically it gets closer to the action, so to speak, in terms of putting itself out there as a mediator once the kinetic actions have begun. And indeed, it took 2 weeks for India to respond militarily following the attack in Kashmir. So I mean, certainly the Trump administration, I mean, is a wild card among other things. So we don't really know what to expect from it. I mean, the first Trump administration was in power in 2019. And as I understand it, there were significant levels of involvement. Again, after the military action began, things moved very quickly. And if you believe Mike Pompeo's memoir, he was the Secretary of State during that earlier crisis, of course. I mean, he claimed that the U.S. prevented the two countries from getting to a nuclear escalation. I'm not sure about that, but many credible voices have indicated that the U.S. did play a role in that, and that was the same. It was the Trump administration. I just think, though, so I don't think that the U.S. has been distant in this case, but I just think, quite frankly, there are other countries that could do a much more effective job than the
Like,
U.S.
for example?
Yeah, I've been saying this for days. I mean, the Arab Gulf states, the Saudis and the Qataris and the Emiratis just have very close ties with both India and Pakistan. And they have leverage because they give a lot to both India and Pakistan, a lot of energy, a lot of other forms of assistance, and so on. And it was the UAE that helped mediate the border truce in 2021. So there's a precedent there.
This is true. And they've been MIA this time, which I find a little strange. They've both made noises through press releases, but I found it interesting that the Iranian foreign minister became the first international diplomat to hit the ground for either side. Now, he spent most of the day in Pakistan. He was supposed to be in India today, Mike. Have you heard whether he landed in India, or was he did he pull an Imran Khan that he got to India the day the Indians were attacking the Pakistanis, and all of that got lost in the coverage of the war? Because the man was supposed to be in India on Wednesday morning, and evidently never made it.
I had thought it was Thursday he was meant to be there, but I don't know. But yeah, the Iran issue is interesting because Iran doesn't have as close ties with India and Pakistan. I mean, Iran, of course, staged military strikes on Pakistan last year for that very brief exchange. So that's a bit of a surprise. The UAE actually has been, I think just a few hours ago, I can't remember who, a top leader in the UAE basically made a public statement calling for de-escalation. But yeah, I mean, the international community is united around this idea that there needs to be de-escalation. And that's where I think India, we were talking earlier about the narrative battle. Yeah, I think that much of the world has sided with India and obviously condemning the attack that happened last month. But at the same time, you're not seeing countries sort of step back and sort of acknowledge and sort of suggest that they would be happy with India doing what it has to do to address its counterterrorism imperatives. The message has been, from all the key capitals in the UN and so many other places, the message has been de-escalate, don't fight. And that's something that India might not have wanted to hear initially.
So here's what we have. We have 9 sites in India, in Pakistan, which have been hit. The Indians, Mike, are now confirming at least 4 of their jets crashed. They're not saying shot down. Obviously, it's a really bad day in Indian aeronautical engineering if 4 top-of-the-line planes just crash together on the Pakistani border. So we'll assume they went down. I'm still trying to get Derek Grossman to come on. Can't connect with him. When we do, Derek's from the RAND Corporation and a great India, Pakistan, and especially China and Indo-Pacific watcher. He watches the whole region and watches it quite keenly. He'll be a great addition to this conversation as well. I'm curious, Mike, if Pakistan's claiming 7 jets now, the Indians are confirming 4. Do you think that your off-ramp might become reason for India to escalate? Do you think that too many jets down would be, in a way, a little too much from the Pakistani side? You know what I'm saying? Like, till a certain point, it's good. Oh, the Pakistanis scored a few runs. But if it's too much on the other side, the Indians might hit back. What do you make of that?
Well, again, this gets to what I said earlier. We still don't have a sense about the details of these jets that have reportedly gone down. Were they shot down by the Pakistanis, or did they just crash for other reasons? I think that if they were shot down by Pakistan, I think India would have reason to want to escalate. But if they just crashed, maybe it would be a different story. I think we have to be very careful here. I mean, as I think you noted before, Reuters has indicated that there's been a confirmation that 3 Indian jets went down. I've heard 5, I'd heard 7. At one point, the Pakistani defense minister said that there were Indian POWs. None of that is true. So I think we have to be careful. But yeah, for me, it comes down to knowing the circumstances. Do we know? I mean, do we know why they were shot down? Or sorry, do we know why they crashed? Were they shot down, or did they just...
Well, like I said, the Pakistanis are claiming that they crashed. Now, the Indians were using, what I've pieced together is that neither side has crossed over. This is very interesting. These are standoff weapons, BVR weapons, beyond visual range weapons. You don't have to cross into a country to attack it like the good old days of Balakot. You can actually stay on your side and still attack a country. Now, in a border like Pakistan and India's, which is so militarized, a few hundred meters here and a few hundred meters there is what the difference is. Most of the crashes, in fact, all of the crashes reported have been on the Indian side of the border or the Yellow Sea. This is interesting, unlike last time, where the crash was on the Pakistani side of the border. Wreckage was on the Pakistani side of the border.
Right.
So that's the difference. I do find it quite, it would be quite interruptive for India's aeronautical engineers to let 3, 4th, and 5th generation fighters crash on the same day. I'm assuming it has to do something to do with the ongoing air engagement. I'm still trying to get our senior defense analyst, Derek Grossman, on. Seems like there's a problem. I apologize to Derek, and I apologize to the audiences for promising them this fantastic input. Hopefully, he can join us soon. We'll just keep it rotating till he comes on as an homage to his input. But Mike, coming back, why do you think to the point about how the Arabs really haven't stepped in? And by the way, what did you make of the Pakistani performance at the UN yesterday? What did you make of that?
Well, I mean, not much came of it, but that's not a surprise, right? I mean, I think that the UN members would reflect this broader international consensus in favor of de-escalation. So they call for de-escalation, and that's it. Now, the Pakistan, I believe Pakistan's formal position on the attack in Kashmir was that it was a false flag, and that's not going to get any type of support from any country. So I'm not sure if that's something that Pakistan would have brought up in that meeting. It wouldn't have gotten any type of sympathy for that. So I think that I suspect there wasn't much of a readout. I mean, the Secretary General did make a few comments about the need for de-escalation and so on. I think he made those comments before they had their closed door session. But it's understandable. I mean, Pakistan now being a non-permanent member of the Security Council, that it would want to convene. Naturally, we want to take advantage of any opportunity it has. But I suspect that they all agreed that they need to push for de-escalation, which is certainly what what Pakistan would have liked to hear. Clearly, it had no impact because 24 hours later, we have this very high intensity Indian strike. But for me, that was sort of a non-issue, the UN meeting. It happened, nothing came of it, not really a surprise. I confess that I'm not a night owl, unlike you, and I'm fading a bit fast. So I will need to log off.
Yeah, it's time to call it, Mike. But just real quickly, just to get a little bit of clarity, where do you think the next few hours will go? What do you think will happen?
Well, I mean, I believe there's been it was expected to be a press conference in New Delhi with senior officials. I haven't been tracking that, but it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. It was supposed to be at 10 a.m. local time. It's probably, I think it's just after 10 local time in India now. So that'll be something to watch. There's also going to be some pretty significant high-level meetings between the key security officials in both countries. Let's see what comes out of that, because I suspect that any decisions about what comes next, if there's further kinetic activities and all, that would come out of those meetings. So that's what I'm going to be watching once I wake up in a bit. I hope I don't miss anything too significant. But I think that's what's going to carry the day, I think. And I'm always watching the messaging, the rhetoric from both governments. Are we going to sense an indication of a readiness to think about moving away from the brink, or is the talk going to continue to be tough? That's something else to watch.
So what do you think the signaling has been overnight?
Very, very, very well. I mean, the Indian statement that claimed that its strikes were non-escalatory. That's very telling. I think I think India did that so that it could essentially paint Pakistan as the aggressor if Pakistan were to retaliate, which it did, understandably. Pakistan's response was, as one would expect, very strong. I think some senior officials said that what India did constituted an act of war. That doesn't exactly suggest the desire to de-escalate, but that comment was made before Pakistan's response. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's too early to expect either side to be talking de-escalatorily.
Yeah, so just to recap on signaling, two signs from the Indians. One, that these are de-escalatory strikes, which makes no sense, non-escalatory strikes. And secondly, Bharat Mata Ki Jai from the Indian Defense Minister. Long live Mother India. Almost both of them, if you see them synonymously, almost both of them like, all right, guys, we're done for now. Now, the Pakistanis clearly weren't done and don't seem to be done. And they seem to be escalating it. And they have responded in myriad sectors. But the Pakistanis have been a little overexcited as well in the fog of war. The Pakistani defense minister had to walk back from his statement about taking Indian POWs. I thought that was a very strange occurrence. But then again, it is Khwaja Asif. He is famously senile. Premised on that, you don't have to comment on his senility, Mike, but premised on that, you're watching the Pakistani meeting, which is in an hour. What are the Indian meetings you're referring to? Which ones do you know that I don't know of that seem to be happening?
Well, no, I mean, I don't know the specifics, but maybe I got that wrong. My apologies. I thought there were. You were just going to put a press conference in India, which is
the briefing,
maybe briefing, which may be happening right now.
All right, Mike, you will have a sit rep in your WhatsApp when you wake up from me, Mike. You will have it ready for you in case you miss anything. I don't think I'm going to be getting much sleep tonight, but thank you for joining us, my man.
Thanks for having me. Great discussion as always.
This is what we do, right? Wake up for nights, stay up for nights like this. Thanks, Mike. Stay safe. Talk soon. That was Mike Kugelman, the South Asia wala. फिर से recap करते हैं. 1 घंटा 17 मिनट हो गए हैं. My name is Wajahat Saeed Khan. I have just talked to two of the best minds on Pakistan-India watchers in Washington. Hussain Nadeem had to leave us for another interview. Mike Kugelman has been with us for the last hour or so. Here is what we know. Raat ke paune 2 baje at 1:44 in the morning on the 7th of May, India attacked 9 sites in Pakistan, which it claimed were targeted, were terrorist sites. This is how the Pakistanis responded. They responded with clarity, and they responded with precision. The Pakistanis are claiming 5 Indian jets have been downed. Some Pakistani stations and newspapers are claiming a higher amount. The Indians are beginning to confirm some number of jets being downed as well. Meanwhile, on the Indian side, the perspective of the reason for this clash is quite clear. The name of this operation is Operation Sindoor. Now, this is what Indian media is saying, that India is ready with its own retaliatory action. That is strange, because how can you retaliate when you really start? So this is counter attacking. If India attacked, Pakistan counter-attacked. Now India seems to be getting ready for a third phase. And in fact, Republic TV here is calling this Operation Sindoor 2. This started around a couple of hours ago when they were saying that this was just the first phase of the operation. Images like this are being shown in India, they're not being shown in Pakistan. This is an image of a mosque which fell, which was damaged in Muzaffarabad in Pakistani Azad Kashmir. This is the sort of rhetoric you can see on popular Indian channels. Please note the number of messages that are going crazy in Republic World. This is very, very right-wing channel in India. You can tell from the type of tweets, rather the type of quotes that are coming in. You can also tell from the quality and content of the chyrons. On the Pakistani side, this is what is happening. This is Pakistan's most watched channel, Geo News. I helped launch it a couple of decades ago. And Geo has been at the forefront of reporting from Pakistan tonight, and was the first to report several hours ago that the Pakistani counter-strike measures included not one, but multiple Indian jets. This image you're seeing on the right-hand side has been confirmed by an AFP correspondent in Washington to be AFP, Agence France Presse images. So these are French press images confirming that a French jet has been downed in Indian-occupied Kashmir. India has at least 2 French jets in its arsenal, the Dassault Mirage 2000 and the Dassault Rafale. Now, the Rafale is a pretty big deal. It was, if it has been downed, it's probably going to affect a lot of people, including the Dassault stock, which has taken a beating this morning as well. This is what the Dassault stock looks like. Not very good. And analysts are saying that Pakistan's downing of Indian jets is a clear yardstick. And I did a report on this a couple of days ago. A clear yardstick and a clear testing field for Chinese weapons. The Chinese PL-17 air-to-air weapon, which is a standoff weapon, which has been used evidently by the Pakistanis to good effect tonight. This is what Pakistani airspace is looking right now. Not a lot of flights operating over Pakistan right now. And as you can see, even in Western India, the only flights that are sort of going are going probably towards Karachi. The Punjab, northern Punjab, Kashmir side does not look very populated with air traffic tonight. There are other issues brewing as well. International media is keeping a close eye on this. This is the front page of Al Jazeera. This is the front page of the Financial Times. This is the front page of the New York Times. And they are all dominated by the India-Pakistan clash. This is the front page of The Guardian. Pakistan's claim of 5 jets is mentioned in this particular paper. Reuters is confirming that the Pakistanis have, local Indian government officials have confirmed that this is actually happening. There are all sorts of analyses to be drawn here. One is that this is embarrassing for India. They've lost at least 3 fighter aircraft, possibly more. And the very fact that the Pakistan Air Force, which is a smaller air force, has gone on to not attack but counterattack and put Indian Air Force to shame, goes on to raise a big question. These images are going to be haunting India. They're not going to be very popular in India, but the Indian mainstream press is pretty damn good at making sure that images like this do not circulate on their channels. These images which are circulating in non-mainstream organizations like, for example, The Hindu. The Hindu is an excellent newspaper of Indian origin. It's based in the Indian South. It's a liberal paper. It's got liberal traditions. There are not a lot of great papers left in India, not a lot of great papers left in Pakistan for that matter. But this image is not of an Indian jet downed, is not being carried by other mainstream papers, for example, like this one. This is the Indian Express, a more mainstream, more centrist paper, is not carrying images like this one. The Times of India, for example, one of India's, in fact, not one of India's largest paper, is also not carrying images like this one. The images they are carrying are of the other side's destruction. Of course, it is the fog of war, and both sides are claiming victory. The Indians are, in their propaganda, claiming that each and every site they hit was a terrorist target. The Pakistanis are claiming in their propaganda that women and children have been killed. But that's not just propaganda. We've also seen images from Pakistani hospitals in emergency, and women and children being carried out to those hospitals and being given medical treatment. So clearly, women and children have been targeted. This is going to become a war of narratives. This is going to become a war of diplomacy. This is going to become a war of off-ramps. I just spent the last hour and a half talking to two of the best analysts in the business about when both sides will declare victory. When will it be enough? Some people are already talking about a second stage. It's been around almost 9 hours since we first heard of this conflict. It's been almost 9 hours, and in those 9 hours, we've seen the war see shades of escalation we haven't seen in the past. In 2016, the Indians gave Pakistan an off-ramp with what is called plausible deniability. The Indians conducted what they claimed was a special forces operation after Uri, and went in evidently and got some Pakistani targets and said, "Oh, we hit a bunch of Pakistanis." And the Pakistanis said, "No, you didn't." And that's where it ended. It was a war of narratives. Both sides claimed victory. Both sides one side said we did it, other side said we didn't. It became a he said, she said. That was in 2016. In 2019, things became a little more complicated. In 2019, it became a case of the Indians sending in bombers into mainland Pakistan for the first time since the 1971 war. Balakot, which is not in occupied Kashmir or Azad Kashmir, but rather in Pakistan's KP province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Indian jets attacked Balakot, didn't hit much. At least they couldn't prove they hit much. The reporting, which was done from there, showed dead crows and broken trees. Next, the Pakistanis hit back. Again, they could have hit brigade headquarters, but they hit in the periphery of the brigade headquarters and lay a trap for Indian interceptors, which were then one of which was shot down in Pakistani territory. That led to a dramatic dogfight, which resulted in a dramatic exchange of the Indian, not an exchange, rather the release of an Indian pilot, Wing Commander Abhinandan, who was in Pakistani media for a minute and famously became a fan of Pakistan's tea. Their tea is fantastic, he said, and that became a meme. That war, any war which ends with a meme, or any military engagement which ends with a meme, is a good thing. That was back in 2019. Imran Khan, the former prime minister, emerged as a hero in that hour. It was an interesting time where both sides walked away with their pride intact. The Indians said, the Pakistanis were forced to give up Wing Commander Abhinandan, and the Pakistanis said, well, at least he liked our tea. Both sides walked away with their pride intact. But this time, India had set a commitment trap. India had set an advantage, had set itself in a position where it was a little complicated to walk back from. Its media, which is hyperbolic and hyper-nationalistic, within minutes of April 22nd, had decided that there was a clear Pakistan connection, even though till date, the Pakistan connection has not been established by any Indian intelligence or any Indian investigative agency. Arrests have been made, but there's been no clear indication of a Pakistan hand. In fact, the TRF, the resistance front, which initially claimed and then disclaimed to have conducted the massacre, is supposedly linked to the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which admittedly does have a base in Pakistan, but the Indians have not clearly said where the linkage between the TRF, the resistance front, which was founded in 2019, what the linkage between that group and Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is a much older, much more established group, is. Either way, evidently Pakistan remains the whipping boy and the bogeyman for the Indian military establishment. Now, on the other hand, Pakistan has its own set of problems. Pakistan is run by a Praetorian military state, not very representative of the will of the people. The man who is the most powerful man in Pakistan, unfortunately, is also one of the least popular men in Pakistan. General Asim Munir has a lot of power, but not a lot of love for himself to show. And he runs that country with an iron hand. That, unfortunately, is Pakistan's problem to deal with. But the country has still come together in the last 2 weeks. In fact, if anything, if anybody's emerged as a net winner, I would say it is General Asim Munir in all of this. Because 2 weeks ago, people were not very happy with Asim Munir. There's a lot of people who are still unhappy with him, but Pakistan has rallied around the military and rallied around the flag in this time of national emergency, because the country is effectively in a state of war. Now, that's the larger picture. Where do we stand now? Is this going to be an all-out war, or, as the Indians are saying, a non-war escalation? Keep in mind, the initial Indian handout said that this has been a targeted, focused strike on terrorist camps, according to the Indians, and that these are non-escalatory in nature. Well, they were not non-escalatory at all. They triggered escalation. Pakistan has responded with the tactical advantage it has in the air. Now, the Indians also had said that there's been naval action. We haven't seen any indications of naval action or any news break on the naval side. Now, keep in mind, if Pakistan has a tactical edge, it's only tactical in qualitative symmetry, not quantitative symmetry. Pakistan has less of everything: less men, less munitions, less tanks, less weapons, less platforms, less planes, less helicopters, less everything. In fact, even its defense budget, which was only raised yesterday in agreement in the opposition, was raised after years. The Indian defense budget dwarfs Pakistan's defense budget. But here's the best part: the Pakistanis have qualitative symmetry. They don't have quantitative symmetry with the Indians. They're dwarfed in every way, but they have qualitative symmetry, that they can match the Indians, not pound for pound, but punch for punch. And that is very, very interesting to note. However, Pakistan's weakest link has always been its navy. And the navy, which is Pakistan's smallest service, is threatened by the giant, gargantuan Indian Navy, which has been more or less operationally deployed. Now, I fear, as well as a lot of other analysts fear, that the action this time could be on the naval side as well. But again, that's where the Pakistani Air Force, the strongest of the three services, comes in, which has the best track record against the Indians. That's where they come in by giving air cover to the Pakistani Navy. This could go a lot of ways, but as I was asking Mike thinks that this is now a time for an off-ramp, which means both sides have done what they've done. The Indians have attacked Pakistan. The Pakistanis have counterattacked the Indians. The Indians have hit their targets. The Pakistanis have downed some planes. Let's call it a day. Let the diplomats talk. Let the foreign friends come in, make calls, and say, guys, that's it. We're done for the night, literally. But are they done for the night? If you were to believe some parts of the Indian press, there is going to be an Operation Sindoor 2 coming. And if that does come, and the escalatory ladder is scaled further upwards, all bets are off. Meanwhile, this is what the situation on the ground still looks like. Pakistan and Northwest India are still not very safe to fly in, and I hope this stops. Yes, I agree with Sabahat Uppal, who says we want peace and democracy. Yes, sir. I think yours is the best opinion of the night. We do want peace and democracy. I completely agree. Thank you for joining me in this 1 hour, 35-minute long live. I hope you share, like, subscribe, and comment on what we've done. I hope you share this widely. Inshallah, things will be safe and sound for Pakistan. And I hope my friends in India let saner heads prevail. The Indians have walked into a commitment trap of their own making since 2016. Attacking Pakistan has really not given India much, except perhaps a day or two, or a week or two, or a month or two, or an election or two of Hindu nationalist joy and fervor. That is a very short gain for a very long war, which you have now triggered on the other side, because Pakistan has at this point nothing to lose. The economic war with India is there's no comparison anymore. India is on its way to becoming the world's third largest economy. Pakistan is not even in the G20. With the stakes higher for India, Pakistan at this point has nothing but its national pride and territorial integrity to hold on to. I completely understand that the Indians have a chance and have the right to defend themselves, but that doesn't mean that the people of Pakistan will stand by and watch their country be broken a second time around. Keep in mind, no Pakistani has forgotten 1971. Now, 1971 was a problem largely of Pakistan's own making, when a civil war triggered into something worse, which was the breakup of Pakistan. But guess what? The civil war got a lot of help from Indian forces as well. If Pakistan had its problems, well, India didn't really stop itself from escalating those problems between East and West Pakistanis. Every Pakistani remembers that. And that is something which is buried in the institutional memory of the great Pakistani military as well, which has a lot of problems: ideological, organizational, political. But the one problem it doesn't have is that of clarity. And there is a lot of clarity tonight about who Pakistan's enemies are. Take care of yourself, and I will see you on the other side. Apna khayal rakhein. Pakistan Zindabad.
पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ बहुत सारे महाजर, कुछ हमने खुद खोले और काफी सारे हमारे खिलाफ खोले गए। आज के महाज